Welcome to Coaches Forum with the Women's Basketball Coaches Association and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. I want to welcome four great coaches to our show today as we first welcome Sam Purcell of the Louisville Cardinals. And I said it right because I'm from Kentucky, by the way, Sam. Welcome to the show today. 18 years climbing the ranks. You were a student coach at Auburn, all the way now to associate head coach at Louisville, one of the top programs in the country. You've been listed as one of the top 30 and up-and-coming women's basketball coaches in the country by High Post Hoops, and one of the 50 most impactful Division I assistants by Silver Waves. Coach Purcell has helped the Cardinals do an impressive 211-39 record. That's an 84% winning percentage, which is the seventh best stretch in program history, seventh year best stretch in program history. He's helped guide the Cardinals to the Final Four appearance in 2018, the Elite Eight in 2014 and 2019, and 5 trips to the Sweet 16. Sam, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You betcha. Let's stay in the state of Kentucky. How about that? Let's go to Campbellsville right now for Miranda Denny, her 14th year as a full-time assistant under head coach Ginger High Colvin. Denny has a true passion for the game of basketball and for Campbellsville University, which is a really cool place right there. I've been there a couple of times. For the last 13 seasons, Denny has been working with the Lady Tigers basketball program. She's been part of 316 wins at that university and has won 82% of their games. She's also earned 6 Mid-South Conference regular season championships as an associate head coach, 9 appearances in the conference tournament championship game, and 3 tournament championship wins. Denny and Colvin have taken Campbellsville women's basketball to the NAIA national tournament every season since 2008, 2009. That's a heck of a run. Miranda, welcome.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
You bet. And Alvin Brooks from Baylor. I happen to have crossed paths with Alvin once or twice along the way. His 5th season as assistant coach at Baylor under Scott Drew. He also spent 4 seasons under Bruce Weber at Kansas State. He's a Houston native. He also spent time at the junior college level at Arkansas Fort Smith. He helped lead the Lions to the 2006 National Junior College Athletic Association Division I championship. He spent 1 season on former Baylor assistant coach Grant McCaslin's staff at Midland College. Of course, Grant now at North Texas doing a great job there, where they won the Ncaa championship again. Brooks moved to Division I. He was at Bradley for a while at Sam Houston State, and now he is Scott Drew's right-hand man on the Baylor staff. Alvin, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
That's good to have you here. And Bart Lundy of Queens down in Charlotte, not New York, down in Charlotte. In 2020, Bart Lundy enters his 8th season in his 2nd stint at Queens University of Charlotte, his 13th year overall. He's the winningest coach in Queens basketball history. How many games he won? 287 to be exact. He's won over 75% of his games and over 383 games overall. Lundy first took over Queens program at the age of 25. We have that in common. I became a head coach at 25 as well. The game sure seemed fast that first game. I know exactly what
it did. No doubt.
And man, you have won a ton of games. You've been to the regional title game, the Elite Eight appearance in 2001. You followed that success with a trip to the national semifinals in 2003. 3 times in a 5-year span, Lundy's teams set the school record for wins in a season. You've had a heck of a run there. You also spent a little time at North Texas as well, along the way with Tony Benford. I just saw Tony a couple weeks ago. And you also coached at Marquette University, where you assisted head coach Buzz Williams. Bart Lundy of Queens, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be here.
You know, normally I'd say have a good time and let's enjoy each other's company, and we will enjoy each other's company, but the serious topic of today is really around COVID. And when I think about COVID, I think about our student athletes today, the challenges that they face, the mental hurdles that they face, all the different protocols that are in place across many, many universities. So here's our goal for today. Let's learn one thing from each other that we can take back to our programs. And likewise, let's share ideas that other coaches can beg, borrow, and steal from each other to implement in their programs to keep our precious student athletes safe. We agree on the goal?
I like it.
All right, we're a team. Let's get rolling. So first of all, when you talk about protocols at your university, what protocols have been implemented at your institution, and what standards are pretty non-negotiable within your coaching staff and the institution itself? Let's start with Miranda.
Academically, we're doing pretty much what everyone else is doing. We're masked up all over campus. Classrooms are socially distanced. Our cafeteria is socially distanced, which is a little bit easier for us. We're a small college. I think our average class size is 14 people. So to socially distance in a classroom is not that big of a deal. I imagine it on the larger campuses, that's an issue. We have an app on the student phones. Every day they have to self-report their symptoms. So they do that. We also have QR codes on each building. So they use that app, they scan into buildings, and they use that for contact tracing, how long a student's been in and who they've been around in case there were to be a positive test. Athletically, again, I'm sure we're doing what most people are doing. We temperature check before every activity, be it weightlifting or an individual workout or practice. Lots of sanitation. Each girl has their own basketball. We make sure that gets sanitized before and after they go down. Coaches are masked up consistently. We do not have a testing program where we have to be tested regularly. Our students were tested before they arrived for the fall semester, after Thanksgiving break, and then we'll be tested again after Christmas break as well. But the biggest thing for us is no spectators. When we play games, there's nobody in the gym but us, the opposing team, and those who are working the game.
Bart, how about you? Protocols and non-negotiables.
Yeah, we're a little different. We've got a robust testing program. We've got both PCRs and antigens. Right now, our league is requiring twice a week and within 72 hours of a competition. So our PCRs we have to send out, so the antigens are a little bit supplementary. We've got the app on the phone with Health Sports that traces symptoms, and not only symptoms, but mental health, which I think is important right now. We've got, all the same risk mitigation hopefully everyone else has: washing hands, masks, social distancing. We've been a little more fortunate. Our university was entirely virtual this semester. We come back January 20th. But even with our own little bubble with men's and women's basketball and our swim program, we're the only ones on campus. We've still had outbreaks, and so it's inevitable, and it's a tough time. But I think the testing and the apps have really helped us.
Alvin and Sam, you're in a little different situation, being in probably a much more advantageous budgetary situation than being at the small college level. Alvin, how is your testing protocols? How have they been developed, and how are they working for you?
They've been working pretty good for us. We're on pause now, and a lot is because we use Ncaa, and so Ncaa is a device that if we're within 6 feet, the lights blink red, and so it gives us an opportunity to wear them during practice and during games. And after practice and after games, we get the data immediately, and we know who was close to who 15 minutes or more. And so because of that, we've had contract tracing, and so we've been shut down because of a positive. But we're doing the same thing to where we're masked up. We haven't been able to watch film in our normal film room because it's too small. So we watch film in the gym. We have actually, during our game, we had our first home game last week, and our locker room was actually in our practice gym. And so it was a little odd because it's so open, but we want to make sure that we're 6 feet apart, even on the bench. And so we do everything that, majority of the coaches have said before us. And I think Ncaa is something that's been different, and also to factor where we've tested every other day. I mean, our league rules says three times a week, but we actually went 12 days in a row to where we took the antigen and PCR. So it's a little different for us, but our guys have adjusted to it pretty well.
Sam, how about at Louisville? What types of things have you been doing? Anything unique compared to some of the other responses?
No. I mean, I think I must go with the human element part, Mark. I think, all of us, you went over our resumes and our success, but I think we're all equal on this playing field of COVID experience. So we've really tried to, from a human element standpoint, just have great communication of what we're doing, being safe at all times, and constant communication, not only with our players, but our players' families. to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're trying to fight this together, and that at no time that you should feel like you can't reach out to us to make sure your child's in a safe environment. And with that, our kids are just trying to deal with what they're given. We don't have access into the practice facility 24/7. We have mandatory times because we're cleaning before, we're cleaning after. We're mindful of who's coming into our building. Our housing arrangements, we make sure that, each kid's not, we're fortunate here at Louisville that they're with our players. So our pods are good. And again, just more education with the student life outside. College is the best 4 years of your life. For me, it was 6. But we want it still to be a great experience, but just educate them the commitment that you're making and the seriousness of how you have to interact and how you have to wear a mask in order to, reap the reward of playing the game that you love. So that's kind of just been our flow here since the end of March, when we never got to play a March Madness tournament last year.
Sam, let's stay on the people end, and let's bring our team into this topic, because in a world of diversity, inclusion, communication, listening, all the social issues that have really come to the forefront with all of our programs, and what a wonderful job the coaches, but mainly the players, are doing right now to bring those issues to the forefront. But yet, here we are in a COVID environment where a lot of student athletes are quarantined for specific periods of time, or even together. They're quarantined together in a bubble for all intents and purposes. And our role as a coach certainly is to win games, but oftentimes we think so much about winning, we forget about that personal aspect of building that student athlete to a sustainable, successful person, be a better father, be a better mother, be a better husband, be a better wife. So I'm curious, as coaches, and some of you are head coaches, some of you are assistant coaches, and so players will tell you different things depending on if you're an assistant or a head coach. I'd like to hear some specific stories about how you've connected with your student athletes through this COVID period to help them through this isolation. Whoever wants to go first, jump in.
For us, Coach Drew does a great job of making sure that our staff is always communicating with our guys. And so we often break up every week. We often break up the staff according to our student athletes, and we make sure that we contact them weekly. And I think FaceTime has come a big deal with our program. In the past, I don't think we FaceTime as much. And so now we FaceTime our players a lot more, and they FaceTime us a lot more. And I think it's just the human, like he says, the human element. We're big on being a connected team and not being able to physically touch to be connected. We have to make sure that we connect with our hearts as far as seeing each other and being able to communicate at a high level.
Miranda, is there a player that came to you, don't have to mention any names or anything, or multiple players? What's been common about their struggles during this time dealing with COVID and actually dealing with the isolation?
I think there's just an element of fear, or an element of, I don't want to be the one that messes this thing up. You do your best, you try to stay masked, you try to socially distance. But I think the worst part for our student athlete is not the fact that they might get it, but the fact that it's going to impact the entire team if they do. And so there's just an element of, I think you're just constantly on edge. You don't want to be the one that messes it up. And again, it's not just about your program. You're going to play other programs as well. You could potentially expose them. So that's an issue. But as Coach Brooks spoke about, when they are in quarantine, the best thing you can do is just stay connected with their families, like Coach Purcell mentioned, and just let them know this is a team effort. And though we may not be together, we're still one, and we're still going to get through it together.
Sam, how often do you stay connected, and what types of conversations do you have with your student athletes?
Yeah, we divide it as a staff. So we're in daily connection with all our players, even days that we don't have practice. And obviously we're in season, so you would know that's magnified. But yeah, we constantly communicate, and the message has been clear for our kids, even the same before COVID. The people and our responsibility as coaches to help our players thrive and try to deal and reach a level of success with what you're given and what you have. And those people who are able to figure out how to to thrive in an environment that is obviously tough for not only athletes but for everyone across the country are the ones who are going to come out this okay. So we're just trying to send a message of just keep fighting, deal with what you can. there's still a lot of growth moments that we all can come out great from this. And, let's just take it one day at a time.
Bart, you're a head coach, and my experience as an assistant and a head coach were pretty different when it came to interaction with players, that they're much more likely to tell me things as an assistant coach versus as a head coach. Is it different for you in this COVID environment?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot more intimacy about feelings and, about, especially the mental health aspect. And you think about it, we were coming out of the summer, and we have the NABC Racial Reconciliation Committee. We started a group of our own on our campus, and then we all of a sudden were remote. But we've tried to engage our guys in that. We engaged in the voting in November. And we've had a lot of mental health counseling because we've been in, so we had to isolate when we got to campus till we got a test result. We had a 14-day shutdown. This is all since October 1 when we came back, and now we're in a second 14-day shutdown. So that's 23 hours a day. They have their own rooms, luckily, with their own bathrooms. Each player does, but can you imagine if the general population had to isolate for 23 hours a day, 14 days? I think those are serious. Those are serious things that every coach has to think about. How do you handle with your guys or your gals?
How do you handle that?
I don't know. We luckily before our first shutdown, I can't remember who I was talking to, but somebody told me, hey, we're getting our players out for an hour a day. And that hour we were able to, the first shutdown was still warm weather, and we were able to be outside. We couldn't go in any facilities, but we could go outside and have the strength coach work them out, 3 at a time, socially distanced. I think that helped. And now the university has expanded that to 2 hours per day. It has to be structured, and they can't be in contact with anyone else. These are the ones that don't actually have COVID. They've just been traced out and are in quarantine, not in isolation. But those mental health breaks are huge. But, there's little things like, what are they eating? Do they have groceries? Do they have, the list goes on and on. So it presents new challenges for every coach, depending on how your campus is set up.
Sam, it's a really interesting time in college basketball, especially as we approach the Christmas season. And there's a lot of debate right now, as we've seen in the media, between Coach K and Coach Oates. There was a respectful disagreement there, which ultimately led to an apology from Coach Oates. I actually respect both of their opinions on the fact that, one group wants to go home, another group might want to stay on campus. That was sort of the crux of where the disagreement really was in the end. So as coaches, what advice would you give as we go into the Christmas season? Should players be able to go home, A? And then if they do go home, how do you manage that? Or B, if they're staying on campus because of scheduling, then how do you manage that? It's a loaded question, I know, but Sam, with your experience at Louisville, I thought I'd go to you first.
Yeah, I think it starts with trust. I think that, the general public is reading what's going on currently right now, but they got to remember we've been going through this since the end of March. And when March happened, there was levels of communication that we were talking with our players and our families of where we're going. They were at home, they weren't on campus. So we were trying to make sure they were safe at home. And then as we transition in different phases back, that talk has never stopped. So I do think it's important, and our players will go home for Christmas.
How long?
They will get 4 days, and we're actually in a unique time. We are actually coming off. Today was our first day of shutdown within our program. We played at Duke Wednesday, and we came back and tested, and actually had multiple people within our program test positive for COVID. So we've tested every day since that. And then today, for having 5 straight days of no more popping up, we were able to practice. But to the mental health side, coaches still has trust in our players, and we've reached out to our families and explained to them as well, what's going on, if they're having a COVID test, if they're not, wearing a mask, the side effects. So together, we're working through this to make sure that our kids are in a good spot mentally.
Miranda, you're in a totally different situation. I coached at Rocky Mountain College and Western Oregon, by the way, so I'm very familiar with the small college, and typically I would give my players off a week to 10 days during Christmas. How are you going to manage that at Campbellsville, knowing that kids are going to come home and then back to campus with the exposure, et cetera?
Right. Our kids will go home. They'll be there for 5 days. And again, I think like Coach Purcell said, there's a trust factor there. Our families, I think, will do whatever it takes to keep their kids safe and to keep our program safe. We have great families and great support. So that just kind of goes into play there. But there's things you can do. There's things families can do. You know, I think our families will mask up. I think our families will social distance. And I think they'll take into consideration the things that need to be taken into consideration. Maybe they don't all sit at the table this year. Maybe we spread out a little bit. You know, there's little things you can do to just keep one another safe. But our families were there in March when our national tournament got canceled. We were a day away from heading out to the national tournament, and we really feel like we had a chance. And our families went through that with their kids. The kids had to go home and they're crying to mom and dad. So just being through that experience and going through that with their kids, I think is motivation enough to do whatever we have to do to get through this season.
Coach Lundy, how often will you connect with players? How long will they go home? And then how will you manage that? Will you leave them alone, or will you connect with them during that time?
Well, we're in a little different situation. We went on pause. And it bleeds into the mandatory Division II 7-day break. So our guys, once they could test negative, were allowed to leave campus. So they are already home. So we're going to have almost 3 weeks that they're away. But for me, it was for their mental health, it was better for them to go home than to be isolated in their dorm room. So, you know, they're going to be there. There was no choice. When they come back, we just had all morning, we had Zooms on how do we return safely. So we'll test them when they return. They'll move into their rooms and we'll have to isolate until we get those test results. And we have to have a PCR, I think, and an antigen test. So then we've got 5 days before we roll up and play again. So I have two concerns. One is, the virus. And then two is, how do you take 3 weeks off, come back with 5 days of practice and not get hurt when you play a game? So there are a lot of challenges that we're all facing. You just hope our guys are resilient. As a coach, you have to change what you do. You have to be a little more patient, and maybe push them, which is hard for me, push them a little. I worked for Buzz Williams for 3 years, so you can't push them quite as hard as you want to. But it's a challenging time, but that's our deal.
Coach Brooks, I know the Baylor Bears push their guys as well. How hard will you push them? How long will they be gone? When will they return? And then how do you manage their return in an effective way?
So they'll have a chance to go home for at least 3.5 days. It's a league rule to where if we're going to play a game after Christmas, we have to test 3 times on non-consecutive days within a 7-day period. And so we'll play on the 21st, and they actually have to stay around until the 22nd to test. And then we'll come back on the 26th and test, and then we're scheduled to play on the 29th. So they'll get a chance to go home for at least 3.5 days. And
so how do you tell, Coach Brooks, I'll come back to you, a little follow-up question here. How do you tell 18 to 22-year-old dudes and gals not to socialize over their time during Christmas?
Sacrifice. It's a game that we love, and we have a special group to where we were more on the conservative side and allowed to get in the gym, and our players would send us tweets of several different competitors that's in the gym. And so they actually set up a meeting through us with our athletic director to get in the gym. And so we have a different group that wants to be in the gym. So I think if by them willing to sacrifice that much to be in the gym, then you have to trust them, like everybody else is saying, that they'll do what's right.
Coach Purcell, I'm your player. I'm getting ready to leave your office right now and go home for Christmas. What advice are you going to give me?
Well, enjoy your family, right? We play a game. This ain't life or death. So I think if anything, this has taught us perspective, right? obviously as coaches, we're going to push our kids to be the best that they can be, but every day is not guaranteed. So if anything, it's just to have a attitude of gratitude, thankfulness, and just have that great spirit about you to just fight, tough times.
Let's change gears a little bit to recruiting now. This has been really weird. I mean, starting back in March, I was getting ready to do the American Athletic Conference tournament. Now I'm literally walking to the arena and get a text that we're done. And I got to figure out, so all of us have stories on that March 14th day for sure. And then I got a chance to visit with a lot of coaches for the next several months because they were home. Recruiting had changed. Everything had changed. What are you doing from a recruiting perspective to overcome the isolation of having to be on campus, the evaluations, all those, there's so many aspects to it. And we're going to change gears a little bit on the recruiting side. How have you changed and what are you doing now to be an effective recruiter versus what you were doing once upon a time? Coach Lundy, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's challenging now. We're a little different situation. We're able to go out and evaluate. So we have a little advantage over the Division I guys who I can't imagine not being able to evaluate your recruits with your own eyes. But I will tell you that moving back to March, we recruited 5 guys because we weren't allowed to bring our guys back for summer. We weren't allowed to bring them back until October 1. So we had 5 guys that we recruited over Zoom who the first time they saw the Queens campus was on October 1. So imagine that coming into this environment, you've been recruited over Zoom and the first time that you come to campus is when you move in. So, going to Coach Purcell's point, we have to be patient and look at them as people before we look at them as, commodities who can help us win a game. They're going through a lot. And I can imagine the high school seniors in junior college. I guess the junior college sophomores have another year, but the high school seniors and even the juniors, no AAU, no coaches watching them. I feel so bad for those kids.
Miranda, how about at Campbellsville?
Much the same. Over the summer is usually when we have to do most of our recruiting. There's 2 full-time personnel here on our staff. So to get out when our season's in full go is just really hard to do. So AAU is huge for us. And obviously that was pretty much a no-go this summer. I know there was some played, but we just weren't comfortable going, to be honest with you. Our campus was shut down all summer, so we could not have recruits on campus. We haven't been able to do that until recently. And at this point, it's 3 recruits a day, campus wide. So that's made a big difference as well. But to echo what Coach Lundy said, the high school seniors right now are just in a really tough spot. They didn't get a chance to be seen over the summer. And then with the rule now that your kids have the year back if they want them, that puts it in a real bind as well. So it's been a challenge, but with the downtime, you find new ways to recruit. I've mailed out more stuff this year than I think I've ever mailed out in my life. FaceTime and Zoom have been big. You just find ways to deal with it because the show goes on and you just have to find a way to do it.
So you actually use snail mail, handwritten notes, things like that?
Yeah, our postage budget has gone up big time this year. Yeah.
That was my I'm still old school that way, by the way. I still would think to do it that way. Alvin Brooks, you guys get a few players now down there at Baylor. What's changed for you and how are you going to ensure that you get great players in this recruiting cycle?
We've actually had success with Zoom. I think we have the highest ranked recruiting class in school history coming in the 2021 class. So we're trying to figure out a way to keep it going to where we could go Zoom just full time from now on. But I think we were blessed to be able to know the families pretty early that we were recruiting, and we only had 3 scholarships, so that kind of helped us to where we didn't need a lot of student athletes. And so just moving forward, it's kind of tough because everyone get the year back. And so I think the hardest part for us is we have to make sure that we recruit our own guys. And so we make sure that we do that at a high level to where nobody leaves, and then make sure that the guys that's coming in, making sure that they're comfortable as far as getting better and knowing who we are as people.
All right, so I got to ask you, without giving away the secret sauce here, just between us, okay? Is there anything on the Zoom calls that you guys do that's kind of fun and unique?
It is. I think, we're able to show who we are as people. And so I just put it like that.
Okay. All right. So what you're telling me is that Coach Drew, he dresses up like Buddy the Elf during Christmas, during Zoom calls?
No, you're definitely able to feel his energy through a Zoom call, just like you would in person. So
I can tell you this, his dad Homer would do exactly that. I coached against Homer, but that's another story for another day. So Sam, how about you at Louisville? You obviously have had, I mean, great recruiting classes now, dominating recruiting classes. Things have changed. How have you changed?
Zoom, same thing as everyone else. I think the cool thing about what has happened for us is before this has happened, we were all on the road. You might, for a recruit, have a head coach, maybe an assistant in there. Now you're getting the whole staff. So when parents are asking, let me know about this person, you get to ask everybody at once. So it's been huge. I think also it's been huge for the recruits. Things have slowed down where we're not catching them at 7 a.m. before school starts, or, late after an open gym to do a home visit. I feel like not only are we balanced, but they are too. And so now we can really get in the heart of things, where it's not so much just be there because we look good in the gym. It's truly what's important to you, and let's get to the facts. So from that standpoint, I've really enjoyed this part of recruiting because I think it's true relationships.
So let's talk about your personal lives a little bit. Life has changed for you. I live the life of a coach, and as a broadcaster, I travel a gazillion miles a year. How has your personal life changed? Hopefully for the better. How has your personal life changed? Let's start. Miranda, how about you?
A lot more time at home. I've actually cooked a little bit, which has been unusual, but
what's favorite dish that you cook?
I'm going with shrimp and grits right now, which is kind of odd, but it's great. It really is good. Yeah. So we didn't even know we liked that stuff, but we got to find that out during this time. But it honestly has been nice to have a little downtime. I know that sounds crazy and you hate for it to be in this type of circumstance, but to have a little downtime and be able to reconnect has been nice.
Alvin, are you a shrimp and grits guy?
I'm definitely a grits guy. I'm not sure if I've ever tried a shrimp.
How has your life?
You gotta try it. It's great.
How has your life changed with your family, Alvin?
My wife and I, we kind of joked around that we really do like each other. I think that's one thing I think you'll find out during this COVID time on whether you really like your spouse or not. Right. And so we have a 5-year-old son and we have a 6-year-old son. They're 15 months apart, so pretty active household. And so I think just, my ultimate goal in life is to make sure that my sons know me better than the student athletes I coach. And so this actually gave me time to be able to spend with them.
Bart?
I think it's a mixed bag. I've really enjoyed being at home. I have 5 kids, so that's hectic. I've missed my mother's still with us, and I think it's been hard on her. But I go back to our guys, not having our guys here, knowing that their circumstances are not always as nice as mine, and maybe sometimes better when they're on campus. So I struggle a little bit with that, and I'll be glad when this is past us, and we can get back to really shaping young men and ladies and growing them up the way we've become professionals about. So for me, it's a mixed bag, but I've loved being home with the family. That's been the best part.
Does anybody on this call have more than 5 kids?
I'm going to win that one. Unless you got some more.
Coach Lundy's got game. We know that. He's got game. I've got 4 sons, by the way, 36-year-old, twin sons are 28 and a 15-year-old. Judy and I try to have a child every decade if we can. It's cost us millions of dollars on the way. Sam, how about
you're like me? We're going to work till we're 90.
That's exactly right. Sam, how about you and your family? How have things changed?
It's awesome. I'm not gonna lie. We're on the road, we're gone. And so to be able to have consistent behavior, to be home and help my wife. I'm a girl dad. I've got 3 little girls. And I would like to give a big shout out to TikTok because we have made many family dancing videos. And those are moments, as we all know, you can't get back.
Right.
And that part I appreciate. And I think another area that I think for all of us that's been great is, as coaches, it's hard to pour into others if you can't pour into yourself. And right now, this has been a great opportunity for us to get our health right, our blood pressure, our weight, whatever personal things or issues we have at home too. Usually we get maybe a month or a week or weekend. But for the time that we've had, I think a lot of us, I speak for a lot of us, that we've been able just, get our lives, not that they're not together, but just more time to spend and pick things up.
We're going to talk about practice in a minute, but I want one follow-up question. And what I'd like to ask the panel is that if you could, with the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, the NABC, if you give them direct advice to give to the NCAA, based upon your COVID experience as a coach, what's the one thing you would change from your previous coaching life to the coaching life you have today?
I talked about this all the time. I think the need to do home visits with juniors early in the year, some of these home visits that we go that kids aren't organized, and we try to do 30 in 1 month. Now, I know the men's side's different. They have longer periods, but on the women's side at our level, there's only a small window where we can do home visits. It's not spread out. I feel like we kill ourselves. So if anything, I would change that one.
Bart, what have you learned from COVID, from your previous coaching life to today? What advice would you give the NABC, the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, and the NCAA?
I think two things. I think we've already made some strides, after Skip Prosser, but less time on the road, more time with families, and then more access to the players who are already in your program. I think that those are two places that we should move to. The ones that are already with us need us, maybe now more than ever, and the ones that are not with us yet that we have to go recruit. We can do that with less days. I really believe that.
Alvin, what would you change?
I would agree with what Coach Lundy and Coach Purcell said. And I'll also add to, I think being able to not be limited to 7 recruiting days to one person when we're allowed to go out. I think if we just get a mandatory 130 or whatever it may be, if it's shortened, being able to see one kid as many times as you want. Because I think at times you just recruit a lot of different people just because you don't want to see one kid more than 7 times. And I think if you really like someone, you should be allowed to show them that you really like them.
Miranda.
I don't have much to add there. The NAIA is different. We don't have those limitations that the NCAA has. So recruiting wise and things like that, I don't have much to add. I can just say that through this experience, if I've learned anything at all, it's flexibility. I'm very much type A. I have things planned out. You have your travel planned out, and that changes in a minute. And so it's taught me to appreciate, when games do happen, you appreciate them more. When practices do happen, you appreciate them more, and you learn not to take things for granted.
Let's go on the court. Let's talk about practice. Yeah, we're talking about practice. I love practice. Let's ask our panel here about, in practice, are there some different things that you're doing now versus when you did in COVID? What do you like about practice now more in the COVID environment than you liked before? And maybe even what would you change about practice today based upon this COVID environment? Let's go to Coach Lundy. Let's go to you first.
Well, in our circumstance, I've had to change a lot. We've always taken a lot of pride in our summer program and then our preseason conditioning program, and thought that we were in the best shape in the country. And not having those two things, those two aspects of the program, has made me back up, and we're having to teach our system, continue to improve their skills, and slowly get them in shape. You just can't break them. And I've learned through this process some things that I will continue to use as it goes along. But we take a lot of pride in developing our players, and the first 30, sometimes 45 minutes of our practice is skill development every day. And that, in this environment, when everybody's coming back, just like Coach Brooks said, that's how we re-recruit them. you know, we're looking at you long term, and this year is a wash. Everything we get is a plus. We're gonna develop you. We're gonna use this year to develop you. So it's more about them sometimes and less about team. See how that works out on game day, but it's good in theory.
Coach Purcell.
Well, first, I think maximizing time. You know, with COVID, you know, I mentioned earlier, our gym's not open all day. You know, even though we have our own, we're very fortunate here at Louisville to have our own practice facility. There's designated times that we clean it. And what I think that's done for the athletes that we're able to recruit and the players who just truly love the game is when you get in, we got to go to work. We don't have time just to mess around because the clock's ticking. Film sessions are shorter. They're to the point because we can't have the same film meetings that we did in a room. So those parts I think have been really good for us. And then as far as coaching, in the women's side, we're fortunate to have practice players. And this year we don't. I don't have the luxury of that. So we have done more scramble drills because at the age of 40 here, I'm just not athletic anymore. So when they guard me in practice, that is false reality for what's going to happen in the game. So we try to do some crazy stuff, knowing that when the games occur, they will get beat, but I'll never tell them that. So we know how to react when it does happen.
Coach Denny.
I think preseason was probably the most difficult for us. Just not being able to get on campus early enough to go through a conditioning program, or like Coach Lundy was talking about, to develop players was difficult. Pre-practice, you know, the temperature checks, the hoops that you have to jump through. Our training room for kids, just being able to get taped or to get treatment is totally different this year. You know, you're limited to how many people can be in that training room at one time, and the access that they can actually have to a trainer is different. But to be perfectly honest, when we get in practice, it just feels like practice. So you jump through all those hoops, but when you're out on the floor, it's the game you love.
Coach Brooks.
For us, I think, first of all, having a whistle that you press with your hand instead of actually blowing the whistle,
Really?
I think that's the biggest adjustment.
Wow.
And so, besides that, wearing masks, you know, we're big on being a connected team. And so wearing a mask when you're trying to smile at your student athletes, and then you notice, oh, they can't see me smiling.
Right.
I think that's something that, you know, I can't wait to change, to actually take a mask off to show emotion. And then we're big on being connected. So we track body language. And so the more we touch, the more points we get. And so not being able to really hold us accountable for that during practice is kind of tough. And so for us, I would say that's the biggest adjustments, and just making sure when we huddle, even when we huddle, we normally talk about being connected and touching. But now when we huddle, we say space out. And so those two adjustments I think are big, because in the game, we actually do want them to huddle, tight huddles.
Mark, can I add something to that?
Yeah.
I think he's dead on with that. You know, I have a lot of coaching friends who are new coaches, and for new coaches, for new programs, that connectivity is everything. Yeah. Breaking bread, you know, having it at the house, just connecting arms and building that trust. And to have the limitations, it's a real challenging year. You know, for us, Coach Walls has been here for 13 years. We've had an established environment, so it's a little easier to manage. We still have our loopholes, but that's a part that it's really tough that it goes untalked about across the nation.
You know, I think it's a great point. I actually do still coach. I coach fourth graders, which is like the best thing ever. And I coach them just like I did my college teams, except I don't cuss, which is a good thing. But the fact that I can't smile, you know, and I've thought about that. So what I've tried to do is be a little bit more animated. I've tried to give more fist bumps, you know, for positive, kick my leg out like I'm excited. You know, I've tried to maybe more of a clown in a way that I show my players that I'm with them. And they seem to enjoy that, by the way. They seem to understand that I'm having fun with them, even though I can't show them that I'm smiling. So that might be a little thing that I've learned from my fourth graders, that I try a little bit of physical humor, if you will, in order to get through that space. So just an idea. Let's dig into the, this is kind of boring, but I'm going to get into it anyway, because I think there might be some value-add information here. Coach Denny, you had mentioned about facilities, weight rooms and practice gyms and regular arenas and all that kind of stuff, and how you can manage that? I mean, part of this really is about the leadership of your athletic department and giving access to different programs, because some places don't have their own weight room or their own practice facility. So how do you manage the facilities part of this by getting access to your facilities along with everybody else in the athletic department? Coach Lundy, how about you?
Yeah, we've limited, the team's access. It's limited the number of guys that can be in. They're always masked. We bought extra portable racks. It's been, and we don't even have all the teams back yet. So when early January hits, we've got an outdoor weight facility for the outdoor sports, and then an indoor. The demand goes way up. So, we're fortunate. We've got a lot of professional staff, professional strength coaches. Unlike most Division IIs, we've got a little more. But it is a huge challenge, and they are very, they don't want to be the ones, just like the players, those strength coaches and trainers, they don't want to be the ones to come back and be the ones that spread it. And there's a lot of incident of that. There's a lot of training rooms that have had breakouts and weight rooms that have had COVID issues. So, keeping it all clean, spacing out the sessions, there's a lot that goes into it. And my hat's off to all those folks that help us and help around the country, because they've got a heck of a job to get all of them in there.
Coach Denny, I'm going to come to you in a minute, but I want to go to the opposite spectrum here from a budgetary perspective and facilities perspective. So Alvin and Sam, how does COVID affect your ability to access facilities?
For us, we're fortunate. We have our own practice gym. The women have their own practice gym. We share the weight room, but our weight room is humongous. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, weight rooms in the country. So we're able to space out. And if we use part of the weight room, then we definitely have to clean it afterwards. And we're able to have different times. I think, normally the women and us are like family, to where we go watch them practice, they watch us practice. But this year, that's something that we haven't been able to do. And so I would say, other than that, it's kind of like we're all in our own personal bubble, and we watch film in the same place. It's a huge room to where it's a booster room to where the boosters go before the games. And it's a little different than what we would normally do.
Yeah, same here. As Coach Brooks said, the same layout. We're fortunate to have our own facility. But I'm gonna steal a line here from the late Pat Summitt. No job's too big, no job's too small. And that's been our motto that's been established by our head coach. We don't have any, I call it loosey-goosey people coming through our building. Our women enter on one side, our men's team enters on another. We never cross paths. Any volunteer help, they're not allowed in this year. My title on the internet says assistant coach, but I'm also the manager. I'm a life coach. I wipe the floors. When we travel, our travel party has been reduced severely. So we're wearing polos. So anybody who knows me, I'm a bow tie, dress up guy, look good on game day, play good guy. Not this year. I'm in a mask, I'm in sweats. I'm out there just, doing whatever I can just to make sure we have a game and most importantly, have a safe environment for our players.
Coach Denny, what is your life like at Campbellsville? Explain to me the difference in facilities that you have there versus what you've just heard.
Right. So at Campbellsville, we have 32 different teams and we share one weight room. So that's an issue when you're trying to find a weight room time. It was difficult pre-COVID, and it's especially difficult now to just schedule a time and then leave enough time to obviously sanitize and do the things that you're supposed to do there. So we've actually purchased our own equipment to the best of our ability. We have kettlebells, we have things that we can do even in the gym after a practice just to get a quick weightlifting session in. And that's been beneficial for us. We also share the gym. We share the gym with our men's team, with our cheer team, and our dance team. And we also have JV programs here, which those have been limited because of COVID, but we do have to share our facility. So just being able to work together, and everybody's been great to do that. Our athletic director has done a great job of coordinating times for everyone and leaving time for the facilities to be cleaned. But it is truly a team effort, and to make time to feel like you're getting the most out of your practice in a short period of time, we just do the best that we can do.
we're getting ready to wind things up here, and I'd like to go back to the people because that's why we coach. That's why we're here. I'd like to ask you to share with me how COVID has impacted the people that you love, those players that you work with every day, that you invest your time in to make them better people. What's been a positive impact for them? What's been a negative impact for them? Coach Brooks, you go first.
I think the negative part is not being able to see their own family as much as they normally would. Our student athletes have been here since June, and they haven't been able to see their family. And so being able to go home for Christmas would be a huge positive mental health wise for our guys. And so I'm looking forward to them getting back. I know we'll see a lot more smiles just because they'll have an opportunity to recharge. And so I would say that's a positive, and more than anything, just being able to play the game that they love. We have a group that love basketball. Like, I've been coaching for 17 years, and you can tell from the kids that like it and the kids that love it. And we have a special group. And so them having the opportunity to just practice and play games, I think helps them mental health wise, just because when they wasn't in the gym, the text group wasn't fun. And so now it's a little bit more fun because they're getting a chance to compete.
Coach Lundy, anything to add?
When I was at Marquette and then at North Texas, we brought him in too. We had a guy named Dr. Joe Carr. You guys might know Dr. Carr, but he did a little thing where he would go around the room, and we had a ball, and the ball was called the cake. And when each kid had the cake, they could tell their story. And we've done that 3 times since we came back in different ways. So they don't think we're doing the same thing. But I think because we have nobody else on campus, the guys have grown closer. And it's a group where it was a little bit of a rebuild for us and a lot of new pieces. And, you know, they've become close. We're all we have. So really tight. On the negative side, you know, I've got one player who did test positive in this last round, and he's had to isolate and not go home because he has a mother who has an underlying condition. So, you know, that part of it is difficult, is you want to make sure that, you know, he's terrified that he's going to take this home. And, you know, on no fault of his, somehow he caught it. And so those are the tough human realities that we're facing.
Coach Denny.
I would echo a lot of that. Because you are in your own bubble, so to speak, our kids are close. They spend time with each other. They're around each other all the time. That's basically who they can be around. So I feel like we've developed a chemistry with one another. We probably know each other better this year than we would in years past, which I think is a great thing. We too have had some test positive for COVID, and one of them is actually type 1 diabetic. So when you get situations like that, you know, it's just terrifying, and you see the effects of this disease. It is real, and you see the virus, and you know that it's real, and you know the impact that it has. So for us, it's just being able to appreciate, you know, when you are out on the floor, don't take it for granted, and realize that this is a serious thing, and we're going to do all that we can to get through it safely.
Coach Purcell.
I'd say the negative, it's disheartening. You know, the beautiful thing about basketball is the fans. And, you know, for fan attendance, you know, we're fortunate to have 3,000, but some gyms, like we played at Duke, has 0. So it's disheartening for our players not to get to play in those environments after so much hard work. Our freshmen who didn't even get prom or graduation, and then now no fans, you know, my heart goes out to them. But then obviously the positive, just like everybody else said, for our girls, it's a sisterhood. For have each other, to be able to train. I have young women who have dreams and aspiration to be pros. So to continue to work out, get a degree, and stay in the best shape of their life, that's a huge positive.
So in closing, remember our goal? It was to beg, borrow, and steal one thing, right? So from this call today, what did you beg, borrow, and steal from your colleagues across women's and college basketball? Coach Lundy, give me one thing.
I know that Coach Brooks has some secret sauce on the Zoom, and I'm going to find out what the secret sauce is. I'm going to get me some of that. Maybe put it in the shrimp and grits. Who knows?
There you go.
Coach Brooks, your one thing.
I think just the human element part. I think that's one thing that's been brought up a lot, and I think that's one thing that I've known, but just to hear other coaches talk about the human element part, I mean, I think I need to make sure I keep that in my mind.
Coach Purcell.
Go with Coach Lundy on the ball. Hey, you had me intrigued there, Coach. Just passing around your opportunity to speak because, like Coach Brooks said, we always want to have that human touch, and I think the ball might be a good idea just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
From
Agree. That's the
Campbellsville.
one I was going to take.
You're going to take the ball also?
That was me.
Joe Carr, look him up.
I actually took three things away today that I'm
Steal
not
it, everything.
going to take with me to my broadcast tonight. Number one, I'm going to take an attitude of gratitude. That's what I'm going to take to my game with me tonight. Number two, I'm going to find out what that secret sauce is because you know what? I love different kind of Zoom calls because I got a feeling that Zoom calls, it's okay to be different at Baylor. And I think that's kind of where we need to think, coaches, that it's a Zoom call. How can we be different? And everything's on the table. And so anybody wants to talk to me about that, I do some crazy things on ESPN. So I'd be more than happy to visit with you about that. And then the last thing, I have 4 sons and I know I'm surrounded by parents here. And there was one statement made that every coach needs to remind themselves of. And it was this: I want my sons to know me better than the student athletes that I coach. I think that's important. You know what? Alvin, Sam, Bart, Coach Denny, what a joy it's been today to share this time with you. I know we're talking about a topic that is hard to talk about, but man, you did a great job. And on behalf of the National Association of Basketball Coaches and the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, I just want to thank you for spending 60 minutes with us today and helping all of us to be better coaches. Thanks, and God bless you guys. And I'll be watching your scores.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.